Hello everybody, Neptune here for the special part of Octopath Traveler before we reach the end. In this part, I will simply be reading all three of Grayham's notes from his diary in the gates of Finis. There will be nothing more, so let's get right into it. From the diary of Grayham Crossford, part the first. Grave tidings reached me as I was passing through Victor's Hollow in my travels. My beloved's condition had worsened. I knew my journey must be brought to a swift conclusion, lest I be too late in the end. I made up my mind to sail across the verdant deep. The final ingredient I required was the pining of an ogre eagle, the most fearsome beast of the sky. They are said to make their home in the forest of Roubaix, beyond the vast Emerald Sea. When I arrived at the harbor, there was only one ship to be found. It was a grand one, no mistake in that. But the captain was none other than that Leon Bastrel. I recognized him at once, of course. Who could travel these lands without hearing a tale or 10 of that dreaded pirate captain? The very mention of whose name would have set even the bravest sailors' hearts pounding and palms sweating. Yet I found the man himself to be quite different from the one spoken of in legend. Captain Leon Bastrel stood at the helm of a merchant trader which was preparing to hoist sail at the very moment I came upon it. I told him of my haste and implored that he let me aboard. "I'm afraid I don't let just anyone aboard my ship," he told me, and I felt as though I were being put to some kind of test. It was clear this was a man who did not easily place his trust in others. My coin purse as impoverished as my hopes, I held out the only thing of value I could offer: my journal. "This is the most valuable of my possessions," I explained. "Within it, you will find a record of every region of this vast continent, every town I have visited, and every path I have tread. Surely such knowledge is worth the trouble of having one more body aboard your ship for this voyage. After all, what need had I of such a log then? My journey was nearly over, and that all that remained was to obtain the final ingredient and hasten home to my beloved side." Captain Leon gave a boisterous laugh and gestured me onto the ship with a grin. "You'd have me believe the leaves of that old book are more valuable than the leaves in my coffers? You must have quite the journey. I wouldn't mind hearing about it, as you swab my deck anyways." As his ship tossed about the stormy sea, my thoughts drifted ahead of the winds to where my wife's awaited me. I could see her face in my mind so clearly that it felt as though it was only minutes ago that we parted. Not countless moons, and I prayed that the flames would guide me back to her, while that gentle smile still graced her lips. "It's almost finished at last, my love. Pray wait for me just a little longer." I know not what had become of my journal since I parted ways with Captain Leon, but looking back, I am relieved that I left my hands when it did. Surely it is better than my final entry ended with some traces of hope, rather than the bitter pains I would eventually find at journey's end. From the diary of Grayham Crossford, part the second. All hope was lost. My beloved was gone forever. I had finally finished the elixir, but it was too late. Mere days too late. My one true love had drawn her last breath just as I was racing back to her side, medicine in hand and heart filled with renewed hope. For 3 days and 3 nights I lost myself in tears, a river of tears too deep and raging for me to ford my way across it. It was after the funeral that woman found me. Lieblich, she called herself. In the depths of my anguish, my life bereft of all meaning, she asked me a simple question, terrible in its implications. "Would you like to see your beloved once more?" That insidious offer, a mere whisper in the wind, took hold of me. Try as I might, I could not close my ears to it. If it would mean seeing my love even once more, then I would give my very life without regret. Lieblich spoke of the gate of Finis, which separates this world from the next. If I could find it and cast it open, I could bring my beloved back to my side. I had heard the legends before, of course, but for the first time I found myself desperate to believe them. Begging the help of one of Kit's companions, I set out to the southeast. It was a fool's journey, but what else remained to me but a fool's hope? On my way, I passed through the village of Clearbrook. There I came across a young boy stricken with illness and lingering just outside death's door. Convulsions raked his small frame and his skin was mottled with a purplish pox. I recognized the symptoms at once. How could I not? It was the same foul malady that stole my beloved from me. I felt the touch of fate in this meeting. Though I had not been in time to save my true love, I still carried the elixir I had labored so long to create. A remedy that could do nothing for her now. There was no doubt in my mind what I must do, and so I treated the boy with my medicine. When I looked at the boy's face, finally at peace and in calm repose, I saw my beloved again, and in her gentle eyes I found forgiveness. I hope I could do that too someday. Such were the boy's words to me when he was strong enough to speak again. He told me that he wished to follow in my footsteps and become a great apothecary. His words were a reward I never expected. In that moment, I felt as though my journey was perhaps not a fool's one after all. I left what remained of the elixir and the rest of my medicines behind with the boy, and I set out once more, turning my feet again to the gates of Finis. Little did I know what I was making the greatest mistake of my life. From the Diary of Grayham Crossford, Part the 3rd. How could I have been so wrong? All I thought of was bringing my beloved back to the world of the living. When Lieblich told me such a thing could be done, I was all too willing to swallow her pretty words. The moment that I arrived before the gate, I felt a finger of ice run along my spine. Even if my mind had been too slow to recognize it, my very body was repelled by the gate, or more precisely, by what laid beyond it. While I struggled to catch my breath, Lieblich sketched out a magic circle on the ground with practiced ease. As she traced with each twisted line and rune, her hands never faltered. How many times must she have prepared for this moment in her heart of hearts? It was at that moment I realized just how she had longed for this moment, how fiercely she desired to see the dark ritual completion. Only by this ritual may the gate be opened. It will not be pleasant for you, but you must bear it if you wish to see your beloved once more. So, Lieblich spoke as she led me to the center of the magic circle. As she began the ritual, the first thing I felt was a great pain that struck my entire body at once. It was followed by a strange sensation like nothing I had ever experienced. I felt myself stretching and swelling from the inside out. From the corners of my eyes, I saw my own hands changing into something foreign and awful. And then, the fear. Lieblich watched my transformation with a glow in her eyes. It was then I knew this ritual was not intended to open the gate and bring my wife back to me. Yes, I know what truly lies beyond the gates of Finis. That horror is what Lieblich sought to bring back to our world, and I was to be the vassal. My conversations with Lieblich had led me to suspect that the ritual would not work for just anyone. It seemed that she needed my blood, the blood of House Crossford, descendants from an ancient line of sorcerers. That is why I must be the one to prevent her plan from succeeding. For if I fail, she will only turn her sights upon my dear Kit. No, that I cannot allow. So while I recognized before the end what Lieblich intended, I continued to accompany her in her aims so that I could see the truth of the ritual for myself and foil it however I could. Little did I know that I was dealing with a power far, far beyond any mortal's control or conception. I felt my own sense of self growing faint and distant, and something else entirely filling me. I resisted it with all that I had, but that presence, to that thing, a being like myself, a fragile human spirit could be crushed as easily as an insect beneath your heel. Then, just before my mind was completely consumed by the darkness, I saw the smiling face of my wife and son one last time. Oh! I screamed. The memory of my wife gave me the power to resist at the last critical moment. I imagined Lieblich herself did not think I would ever strike back at her, but I had already grown far stronger than I had been as a man. Even when I only managed to land a single blow to her, it cut her deep. She staggered back, and the ritual was interrupted. This is my chance. All I needed to do, chase after her as she flees and cut her evil at the root, bringing everything to an end. This is what I must do. But where am I going? Why am I turning into something else? Something else and less human? And so I wandered the land without aim. There are periods of time I cannot remember. I come back to myself surrounded by destruction. No memories, but I know it was me. Those blackouts grow more and more frequent. They come for me now. No, stay your hand. I am no monster. I am man. I am a man. And thus ended the story of Grayham Crossford. Started out Hope trying to save his wife, failed to do so, and wandered the land, saving Alfane and meeting Lieblich, following Lieblich to his end as Red Eye at the hands of Hinette.